psychology test.
I'm sorry. Did you know that if you smile according to the facial feedback theory, you'll be happy?
No, I didn't know that. I should probably try that.
Try it. There you go. You look great.
I feel a little bit better.
You do?
Yeah.
Here.
I'm excited to learn other stuff that we're going to learn in this chapter.
On motivation and
emotion.
First, we're going to talk about theories of motivation. A motive is a reason or purpose for behavior.
Motives can take the form of drives, incentives, or needs. The first theory of motivation is suggested by Charles Darwin, in which behavior is attributed to instincts. An instinct is an inborn, unlearned, fixed pattern of behavior that is biologically determined and is characteristic of an entire species, or more simply, a fixed action pattern.
William McDougall believed that instincts were the prime movers of all human activity. He identified 18 instincts such as curiosity and reproduction. This is called the instinct theory.
The next theory we're going to talk about is the drive induction theory by Clark Hull. This theory suggests that motivation results from attempting to keep a balanced internal state. For example, to reduce the thirst drive, you drink water to get back to homeostasis.
Homeostasis is a built-in tendency to maintain internal stability or equilibrium. For example, body temperature in humans. Any deviation from homeostasis creates a need. A need results in a drive for action. A drive is a psychological state of tension or arousal that motivates activities to reduce the tension and restore homeostasis.
Drives can be primary or secondary. A primary drive can arise from biological needs such as hunger. A secondary drive is learned through conditioning such as the drive of money.
The nervous systems are involved in maintaining homeostasis. The parasympathetic branch counteracts heat and the sympathetic responds to cold, which are both governed by the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus is involved in the regulation of basic biological needs. The next theory is the incentive theory, which proposes that external stimuli regulates motivational states that human behavior is goal-directed. For example, the sight of ice cream motivates Naren to reach his goal of 5 miles, where he will earn his reward of ice cream. The next theory is arousal theory. This suggests that an aim of motivation is to maintain an optimum level of arousal. Arousal is a person's state of alertness and mental and physical activation. If arousal is less than optimum level, we seek to stimulate it, and if it is greater than optimum level, we seek to reduce it.
The Yerkes-Dodson law states that a particular level of motivation arousal produces optimal performance on a task. People perform best when arousal is moderate.
Richard Solomon proposed an opponent process theory of motivation. This argues that one emotional state will trigger an opposite emotional state that lasts long after the original emotion has disappeared. An increase in arousal will produce a calming reaction in the nervous system and vice versa.
For example, this suggests that fear to dangerous behaviors triggers an extremely positive emotional response, which increases their motivation. The next theory of motivation we're going to learn about is Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Abraham Maslow was a humanistic theorist who presented his hierarchy in a pyramidal form.
The first step in this theory is that we must fulfill our physiological needs, such as hunger and thirst. As we go up the hierarchy, the needs become less biological and more social. After physiological needs are met, safety and security needs become motivating. Love and belonging needs follow, which include the need to obtain and give affection, and to be a contributing member of society. After these are achieved, you continue to reach esteem and self-esteem. Esteem and self-esteem relate to the need to develop a sense of self-worth by knowing that others are aware of one's competence and value. Finally, the highest need in Maslow's motivational hierarchy is the need for self-actualization, which is the need to fulfill one's potential. According to Maslow, people will be frustrated if they are unable to fully use their talents or pursue their true interests. A state of self-actualization provides a sense of satisfaction. This is our friend Naren. First, he's meeting his physiological needs of eating. After his physiological needs are met, he goes on to his next basic needs, which is safety and security. Niren feels safe and secure, he launches to feel love and belonging. After Niren's sense of love and belonging are met, he continues to go up the hierarchy to the next high order needs, which is self-esteem and esteem. Last but not least, Niren has realized his great self-potential, and he is finally satisfied with himself. The strengths of Maslow's theory is that it highlights the complexity of human needs and emphasizes that basic biological needs must be met before anything else.
Criticisms of Maslow's theory include that it is difficult to test empirically. For example, self-actualization is hard to measure directly.
Burt and White proposed the idea of intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. Intrinsic motivation is the desire to perform an activity for itself because we find it enjoyable. For example, leisurely reading.
Extrinsic motivation, on the other hand, is when an activity is performed to obtain an award or to avoid a consequence.
Now we're going to explore human needs in regards to hunger. What motivates us to eat? What motivates us to stop eating once we have started? Because I sure don't know when to. And how do we know when we are hungry?
Well, Nicole, it's not just as simple as we eat when we have an empty stomach, because researchers have found that people are hungry even when their stomachs have been surgically removed.
That's weird. Apparently, glucose is a simple sugar that provides energy, and when the level of glucose is low, we feel hungry, and vice versa. Glucose levels are monitored by glucostats, which are neurons that are sensitive to glucose levels. The hypothalamus receives messages about our glucose levels.
Insulin is a hormone secreted by the pancreas. It's also important for converting glucose into stored fat. Research has shown that people with elevated levels of insulin feel more hungry and eat more than people with normal levels of insulin.
Weird. The hypothalamus is a brain structure that appears to be primarily responsible for food intake. The dual center theory maintains that the hypothalamus contains an on and off switch for eating, which is located in two different regions, the lateral hypothalamus and the ventromedial hypothalamus. These switches can be activated by internal signals, such as damage or stimulation, and external signals, such as sight or taste of food.
Laboratory rats whose lateral hypothalamus, or start eating center of the brain, was damaged would often literally starve themselves to death and become aphagic. When the rat's lateral hypothalamus was stimulated, however, they would overeat and become hyperphagic. Rats with injury to the ventromedial hypothalamus, or the stop eating center of the brain, would continue to eat and become overeaters and become hyperphagic initially. Once ventromedial stimulation happens, the rats would stop to eat and would ultimately lose all their weight and become aphagic.
Injury to the hypothalamus affects the weight set point that regulates food intake. The weight set point is a particular weight that the body strives to maintain. Whenever we are below our set point, we feel hungry until we gain weight to match our set point again.
Now we're going to talk about the causes for obesity. Set point theory is one explanation. According to this theory, each person's body has a fixed number of fat cells. Fat cells may shrink in size when a dieter loses weight and increases in size when weight is gained. The shrunken fat cells that result from dieting sends hunger messages to the brain.
Also, a dieter's metabolism, which is the rate at which energy is produced, may slow down as a result of the shrunken fat cells. It's harder to lose weight with a slower metabolism.
Really? Some individuals seem to have naturally slow or fast metabolisms. Those with slow metabolisms eat small amounts of food, yet still readily gain weight.
Those with fast metabolisms can eat as much as they want without weight gain. Aren't they lucky? There's also evidence that some people have a genetic predisposition to become obese. Metabolic rate is inherited.
Other reasons for overeating include learned preferences and habits, external cues such as the sight of food or the time of day, and stress and arousal can also cause overeating, as studies have shown that when you are more stressed, you tend to eat more.
So, Niren, what's next to talk about?
Let's talk about eating disorders, Nicole. Anorexia nervosa is the first eating disorder we're going to talk about. It is characterized by the irrational want to be skinny and constantly worried about body image and gaining weight. Nicole, what gender do you think is affected most by anorexia nervosa?
I'd have to say females.
You are correct. 90% of people with anorexia nervosa are females, and they can drop up to 25% of their weight in a year.
That's crazy. The next eating disorder is bulimia nervosa. Bulimia is when people eat huge amounts of food in a short period of time and often engage in self-induced vomiting, vigorous exercise, use of laxatives, or other methods to purge themselves. Bulimia tends to afflict women in adolescence and young adulthood, similar to anorexia.
Wow.
Alright, enough about eating, right?
Thank God.
Let's talk about the thirst drive. Due to the loss of water through sweating and urination, we must fulfill this drive often. What causes the thirst drive?
Well, you see, three primary internal mechanisms produce thirst. First, when the concentration of salt cells reaches a certain level, the hypothalamus is triggered to produce thirst. Secondly, a decrease in the volume of fluid in the circulatory system also causes thirst. Finally, a rise in body temperature or a significant output of energy also produces thirst.
Wow. Well, we know we are thirsty when we get a dry mouth. Unlike the thirst and hunger drives, which are necessary for individual survival, sexual motivation is necessary for the survival of the species. The causes of sexual motivation come from hormones. The hypothalamus controls the release of luteinizing hormone from the pituitary gland. This hormone controls the release of androgens, estrogens, and progestins.
Heterosexuals are attracted to individuals of the opposite sex. Homosexuals are attracted to individuals of the same sex. Bisexuals are attracted to both. No one theory fully explains sexual orientation. Some are biological, saying that it is caused by a genetic predisposition or hormonal reasons. Others have suggested that it's caused by environmental factors. Others still have argued that it's a learned behavior from childhood or past experiences.
Social motives are conditions that direct people toward establishing or maintaining relationships with others. They are learned through socialization and cultural conditioning. Social needs are internal conditions related to feelings about self or others in establishing relationships.
One social need that we're going to talk about is the need for achievement, which causes a person to strive for excellence and success. Henry Murray developed the thematic apperception test, or the TAT, to measure the strength of various needs. The need for achievement was included and was defined as the need to accomplish something difficult and perform excellently.
David McClelland was interested in the effects of high or low needs for achievement. Those with high needs for achievement tend to set goals of moderate difficulty. They pursue goals that are realistic yet challenging, but persistent, plan for the future, and take pride in their success.
Achievement motivation appears to be learned and related to practices and values in the home. Children may have higher need for achievement if their parents give them responsibilities, independence, and praise.
Both men and women experience the fear of success. This occurs when someone worries that success in competitive situations will lead to unpleasant consequences, such as unpopularity.
The other major aspect of this chapter, other than motivation, is emotion. Emotion includes a subjective conscious experience or cognitive component, physiological arousal, and behavioral expressions.
We use our emotions to communicate feelings. Emotions are automatic and involuntary. They're what separates humans from any other animal.
Emotion is associated with the autonomic nervous system.
Wait. Niren, what's the autonomic nervous system again?
Well, Nicole, if you don't remember from the last chapters, it is a division of the peripheral nervous system that is connected with involuntary functions of the body and regulates activity of the glands, smooth muscles, and blood vessels. It is also responsible for the fight or flight response, which, as we know, causes the dilation of the pupils, heart rate increase, and adrenaline to be secreted as a response to a threat.
See, I remember that. The galvanic skin response, or GSR, describes an increase in electrical conductivity of the skin that occurs when the sweat glands increase their activity. It is often used as a measure of autonomic arousal and emotional reactions. The polygraph, or in other words, the lie detector test, is based on the assumption that there is a link between lying and emotions. Lie detector tests measure respiration, heart rate, and blood pressure in the GSR.
Plot twist, lie detectors don't actually detect lies. Instead, they detect nervousness as measured by various physiological reactions. They're only accurate around 2/3 of the time, and so many courts do not allow lie detector evidence. This is because many may appear nervous when they're innocent, and those that are guilty may appear calm. Therefore, it is not always reliable.
Makes sense.
William James and Carl Lang proposed that people experience physiological changes and interpret these changes as emotions. In other words, emotions follow behavior and not vice versa.
In this example, when Aaron sees the cat, which is a stimulus, he starts to sweat, which is a resulting behavior, and this elicits fear.
Another theory of emotion, other than the James Lang theory, is produced by Walter Cannon and P. Bard. The Cannon-Bard theory felt that physiological changes in many emotional states were identical. Because of this, people cannot determine their emotional state only from their physiological state.
In this example, Aaron sees the cat again, which acts as a stimulus. From here, the thalamus sends fear signals to the cortex into the autonomic nervous system at the same time. And this is why he sweats and presents fear at the same time as well.
The next theory of emotion is the Schachter-Singer theory. This theory is a cognitive approach and proposes that emotion occurs when physiological arousal causes us to search for reasons for this arousal. We examine the environment for an explanation for this arousal, such as a stimulus. Emotions are determined, therefore, by labeling our arousal based on what is occurring around us.
In this example, Aaron sweats first and then searches for the stimulus or the appraisal environment. He then fears the emotion. The facial feedback theory proposes that involuntary movements of the face send feedback to the brain about which emotion is being felt. This theory proposes that people universally show the same expressions when experiencing the same emotions. 5 different universal facial expressions were suggested and include happiness, anger, disgust, sadness, and fear and surprise. For instance, the facial expression happens first, which then causes the emotion. Like when you're smiling, you feel happy.
A research study done in 1996 and 2002 tested people on how they would rate cartoons. When people were induced to smile, for example, they led to report more positive feelings and to rate cartoons as more humorous. When they were induced to frown, however, they rated cartoons as more aggressive.
Robert Plutchik proposed that emotions evolved because they help a species to survive. He felt that emotions are inherited behavioral patterns and modified by experience. According to Plutchik, there are 8 primary emotions: sadness, fear, surprise, anger, disgust, anticipation, joy, and acceptance. Other emotions are secondary. For instance, when 2 primary emotions, such as surprise and sadness, combined, they form disappointment, a secondary emotion. Also, when fear and acceptance combined, they form submission. Plutchik's theory has elements of both the common sense theory and Schachter's theory.
In sum, various components of an experience, cognitive, physiological, and behavioral, all contribute to our emotional responses. Our bodies may become aroused in a given situation, but also we have to appraise each situation. Thus, arousal alone does not directly cause one emotion or another.
None of the theories of emotion apply to all people in all situations, therefore showing the complexity that human emotion entails.